Hello everyone, here is Andrea, and in this video we're going to learn how to uh, implement different widgets within a Matplotlib uh, window. Basically these widgets will be responsible for the creation of different buttons with which we will try to control and change multiple properties of our plot while it keeps being displayed in the main window. I think it's a really useful and practical thing to know because I mean, whenever you're presenting your results or you're just going you're just exploring how your plot or how a specific function actually changes when you change some of its properties. In this way, by having some buttons in the main plot window, you're not forced to close the window, change the script, and then compile again the script and see how the function is changing. Um, without saying any other things, I think that just this feature is fairly convincing for learning this topic. Let's move on with the script. So the first thing that we have to do is to import some libraries. I'll start with NumPy as usual. Then of course, since we are going to plot our function and our widgets, Matplotlib, yeah, sorry, pyplot as BLT, and then the package that contains the widgets belongs to the Matplotlib library, Matplotlib, and it's called widget. And we're interested in just three. I mean, for this video, we're just interested in three different widgets. One is called button. The second one that we will learn how to use is called radio buttons, and the third one is called check buttons. And we will see how they work and how they actually appear in the in the main window. So since we have to change the properties of a plot, we have firstly to plot something. So I'm just going to define an X and a Y array that will describe a specific function. So let's begin by commenting this task. So X and Y arrays definitions. Okay, so for the X array, I will use as usual linspace, and I will take an array of numbers from 0 to 10, and I want, let's say, 50 equally spaced numbers. For the Y array, I will just choose a random function using NumPy, let's say sine of x squared, and then let's multiply this by an exponential function x. Yes, like this. So perfect. This is our function. We can just plot it if we want. So plotting the function, and these are the usual commands that you implement with using Matplotlib. So plt.figure, then we have the axis dot subplots. Perfect. Since we're going to introduce some buttons within our plotting window, we have to create the space actually for placing the different buttons. So I'm just going to move a little bit upwards and a little bit on the left our plot our plotting window, and I can do this by plotting by typing this subplot underscore adjust, and I have to specify what I want to adjust. So I want to adjust, as I said, the left border and of 0.3 and the bottom, because I want to shift my plot upwards, of, let's say, 0.25. Perfect. Let's plot the function. So p equal to ax dot plot x and y. Let's choose a color. I'll go with blue, and I will also assign a label, and I'll call it plot1. Perfect. I have to remember to put the comma here in order to be able to modify this plot to access its properties in the second time when I'm defining the different buttons. So if I plot now what I've just created, the result is this. Okay, so as you can see, the plot is shifted towards the left, towards the right, sorry, and upwards. So perfect. Now we have to create different buttons. So let's begin with the widget button. So let's create some space here. We have to keep plt.show at the end. So I'll just type button just to separate this space from the other. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to instance the axis, which basically define the place, the position, and the width and the height of your button. So I will just assign all these properties to the variable x underscore button, and I'll type plt dot axis, and the input for this function are the horizontal position. I'll type 0.25, the vertical position 0.1, and the width and the height. So let's say the width is 0.08 and height 0.05. Let's see how it works. So just to summarize, this is the x position, the y position, the width, let's type it, width and height of your button. The next thing is to define the properties of your button. So properties of the button, which are more related to what the buttons will actually look like. For example, its label, its color, and so on. So I'll just have to define another variable in which we can store all these properties, and I will call it grid button. And here I have to use the dedicated function button, which I have imported from Matplotlib widgets. It takes as inputs the space in that I have created for the button, which is ax underscore button. So perfect. Then it takes the label of the button, and I'll just create grid, because with this button I want to create a button that basically can enable or disable the grid of our plot. Sorry, I didn't mention it before. The color of the button I can also specify. I can specify the color with numbers, but I can also just type the color. I will just go with white. And another thing that we can specify, as you can see here, is the hover color, which is the color of the button when it gets clicked. And I'll make it, let's try with gray to see how it looks like. So just to show you more gradually what is happening, if I just plot the thing at this point, here you can see I've just created the space for the button, but there are no properties in this space. When I run also this command here I have the button, and as I hover my cursor on the button, it changes the color. It has the grid. I can click on it, but it is not linked to any properties of the plot, which is what we are going to do right now. Perfect. Let's create again some space. So what we have to do, as I said right now, is to create a function, and we have to link that function, which will describe the task that we are interested in, and we're going to link that task to the action of clicking the button. So as I told you, let's define, let's commit, so enabling, disabling the grid. Perfect. So I will define a function. I will call it grid, and the function takes as input the value, which is the value of the button here, and the command that I want to perform, the action that I want to perform in this function is just to enable the grid, which is ax.grid. And then, as usual, I have to redraw the figure, and I can do this with this command, redraw the figure. So there are no expected output for this function. I just have to decide whenever what event will trigger the action of that are performed within this function. And to do that, I will just type grid button, which is the variable that is referring to the button, dot onClicked, which means that when the button gets clicked, we have to type what the system has to do, and I will type grid, which is the function. So every time I click, the button gets clicked, the system will run this function, which will enable or disable the grid. So we should be done. So let's type triggering event is the clicking. Here, as you can see, it works perfectly. As I'm clicking the button, the grid gets disabled or enabled, so it's perfect. So good, we're done with the first button. Let's move on now with the second one. The second type of widget is called, as you saw in the when I was importing the different function, is called radio buttons, and it basically features a series of different spherical buttons with which we can basically enable or disable a specific option of our plot. The most important thing that has to be kept in mind when using these buttons is that when I'm enabling one of the options, the previously active one gets disabled. So I will be able just to to activate one of the displayed options. I want to use this type of widget to create different options for the colors of my plot. And so let's begin. I will just to separate this other section, radio buttons. And okay, so as we did in the first part, let's begin by defining the place and the dimension and the size of this widget. So I'll define an axis called ax_plot plt.axis, and regarding the dimension of this button, let's try, first is the location, which I'll just 0.02 for the horizontal position, 0.05 for the vertical position. Let's see the height, it has to be the width, sorry, 0.2, and the height I will try 0.3 because it has to be higher than the previous one, because we have to include different buttons, different spherical toggles in the widget itself. So we're going to check now where the widget has been placed, just to be sure that there is space enough. Okay, that's perfect. As you can see, in this square here will be placed the different options regarding the color of the plot, sorry. Okay, so this is we have just instanced the place and the space for the button. Now let's begin with its properties. So let's call it color button, because with this button we're going to change the color of the plot. We will use the different options to create different color options, and then we will be able to choose the specific color to assign to the plots and changing it in real time. So color button, and I have to use again the specific function, which is radio buttons. First instance, the first input is the space dedicated to this, which is x_color. Then we have to give as input a list containing the different labels for the different buttons. As you can see here in the official documentation, it accepts the axis, the labels of the button, and their state, active. And we can also specify the active color, which is basically the color that the active button will have. But we will see it later when I will display it in the final part. So as I said, the labels, and I will just create a list since I'm going to create different buttons. If it were only one button, it will be just a string, but here, since I'm creating different options, I will have to enter a list of labels. So the first options will be red, the second one will be green, the third one, let's come back with the blue, which is already the first color that is displayed here. I've just defined that the color for the first plotting action is blue. And let's go also with black. Okay. Then I have also to specify the state of each of the option. So let's say that the first, as I told you, the plot is blue, so the first one, the color red, will be false, it will not be activated. Also the second one. The third option will be active, so true. And the fourth one will be false again. Another thing that we can also specify, as I told you, is the active color. Active color, and I want it red. So this means, yeah, I already told you that when you activate the active option will be colored in red. So we can just type plt show and see how it looks like. Here, as you can see, it created different toggles within the widget, and as I clicking on one of the buttons, it changes the color. So red, because now the activated option is red, blue, black, and green. Here's the grid that is still functioning well. And of course now they're not related to any function, so there is no actually consequence in the clicking of the different options. We just have now to define a function that describes the action that the system might have to has to take every time we click on the button. So let's go with this function. So I say just function for changing the color, the plot color. I'll define it with the name color. Not a great fantasy. It will take as input the label of the buttons, because the label is already, as you can see here, the color itself that I want to give as input, and in the command. So I have to refer to the plot, which is the variable p. And then there is the method set color, which basically change the color of your plot according to the thing that you enter in this, between these parentheses. And between these parentheses I will give labels, which can be red, green, blue, or black. As usual, after that I will have to redraw the figure. So canvas dot draw. Perfect. Now we have to choose also when we want to perform these actions, and we can do this as previously. Color button, which is the button which is the variable in which are stored all the different properties of the button. Again, the method onClicked, I think it's the most suited one, and every time we click on one of the different options of this widget, we have to perform the function color. We have to run the function color. Let's see if it works correctly. So let's say now it's blue. I want to change the color to red. It's working. The grid is still working. Let's try with the green. It becomes green, black, it comes back to blue. So it's working perfectly. So yeah, also for this second part we are done. As you can see, that it's quite straightforward when you learn how to do one type of button. The others are only slight variations on the topic. So now we're left with the last type of widget, which is called check buttons. So let's move on with that. As before, I will just comment the section in order to separate it from the other buttons. So we're going to create the so-called check buttons. Okay, so what we are going to use them for? Well, actually, first of all, what are the check buttons? Check buttons are really similar to the radio buttons, the difference is from a graphical point of view. These buttons I mean, the widget provides a series of different options. Again, each option is indicated by a squared button instead of a circular one, as you saw in the radio buttons. And when you activate one of the options, it gets crossed. So there is a cross on the square, which will mean that that option has been activated. But the most important difference between check buttons and radio buttons is that check buttons allows you to activate multiple properties at the same time. So basically, when you check one of the option, the other option that was previously activated does not get deactivated. So you can activate multiple properties of your plot at the same time, which is really important. And I think it's the difference that has to be kept in mind when choosing and designing the different buttons that you want to apply to your plot. It depends on what you want to do and what's the task that you want to assign to your buttons. For example, in this last part, we will use check buttons for enabling and disabling the display of a second plot in our window. So as you may already have understood, this is a situation in which I want that both the options can be activated at the same time, because I might be interested in having both the plots displayed at the same time, or neither the two of us, or just one, or just the second one. This is the typical situation in which the check buttons are more useful compared to radio buttons for this task. While, for example, in the previous one, if you're going to change the color of your plot, it doesn't make any sense to enable multiple color, since your plot can have just one color. And so for this task, the radio buttons were more suited. Okay, so since we are going to create a button that will enable or disable a second plot, the first thing that we have to do is actually to define the second plot. It will be called, I think, well, let's type defining a second plot, a second function. This second function is called y1, and it's similar to the previous one, -1 times numpy dot sign x squared, times let's just stick with the previous one, exponential of x. Okay, so this is the second plot, and now we can plot it. So I will assign it to the variable p1, comma, and we can go with ax.plot. We can just keep the same x array, y1. The color of this array can be like, let's make it blue as well, because we can change the color of the previous one, so it shouldn't be a problem. Label is called plot2, and let's just also add this option, which is visible, and we set its visibility to false, so it will not be displayed during the first plotting action. because its visibility is set to false. Okay, so now I will define 3 different lists that will be useful for the creation of the check buttons. The first list is called plots, and it contains basically the 2 plots that I've just defined. So one is B and one is B1. Then I will create a list called activated, and in which I will store basically the visibility of the plot. So the first one is active, is visible, while the second one isn't visible, so it's false. And then the third list, I will call it labels, and I will just store in this list the 2 labels of the 2 plots. So plot 1 and plot 2. Okay, so now let's go again with the usual actions. So we have to instance the axis. I'll call it ax_check because it's referred to the check buttons. plt axis, and this time let's go with the 0.7 for the x position, 0.05 for the y position, let's make 0.08 for the width, and 0.1 for the height. Okay, now let's define its properties. So I will assign the properties to the variable, well, not plot. Yeah, I will call it plot button. It's not creating any confusion. And then I will use the specific function check buttons. So this function, I can show you the function in the official documentation, which by the way is linked in the article. Let's see if I can find it. Slider, span selector, subplot. Where is it? I'll just check. Here it is. So as you can see, it accepts as input the axis, the labels, so the labels of the different options that will be displayed, and the activation state of the different options. So, and of course, as you, if you want to enter more than one option, you have to enter both the labels and the activation states as lists. And for this reason, I just created the 2 lists here, activated and labels. So buttons, as I told before, the axis, check. The labels, and it's the list here, labels. Okay, you can also enter them in this way, labels equal labels, and the active, which is activated. I'll just type it in this way, which makes any difference. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Positional argument. Let's see, just a moment. Because I think, yeah, I have to specify them in the same way. And here it is here, as you can see, 2 options, plot 1 and plot 2, as was specified here in the labels, plot 1 and plot 2. The plot 1 is selected because it is active as specified in this list. The first element inactivated is true, which is plot 1, and the second one is false. And here, and it is correctly. We can, as you can see, as I activate also plot2, it gets crossed, but it doesn't have any related action on the plot actually. So now we're going to define the function for displaying or hiding the additional plot, and also of course the first one, of course. So let's type function for displaying / hiding the plots. Okay, and this function I will call it select plot. It will accept as input the label, because I want to pass the label plot1 or plot2, which is referred to this P1 and P. So let's see. First of all, I want to get from the label, so from this from this indicator here, I want to get the index to the label that I'm referring to. So I'll define a local variable called index, and to get the labels from to get the index of the element from the labels, I will just have to type labels, which is this list here, dot index, which retrieve the index of which corresponds to this variable here. So it basically, for example, in the first instance, the label, let's suppose that I will click on plot1. Label will be equal to plot1. Here, plot1 in this function will search the index of the elements within this list labels that will correspond to plot1. So, and it will return that index. So in this case, it will return 0 because the 0 element is plot1. Okay. So I can just write something here. So get the index of the get the index that corresponds to the word, let's say label. Perfect. Now we're going to set the plot that has the label called the plot. Now that we have the index, which refers to the label that we selected, we can access to different properties of the plot, that of the desired plot, and change them. So the list in which we store the two plots is plots. Now we can access the desired plot with index. Okay, and we will use the method set visible, which basically set the visibility to true or false of the selected plot. And how can we choose the visibility? How can we change, the visibility of the plot here? Well, basically we will use this little trick. I'll just type it and then I will explain it to you. Plots, again, index dot get visible. So basically what we're doing is using the method get visible to get the current status of the visibility of the desired plot here, which is, for example, plot1. So we get the visibility, which is true. Indeed, the first option was already activated. We selected its contrary, so false, and so we set to false the visibility of this plot. For example, let's imagine that we are typing that we are choosing to click on the second option, so plot2. We just click on plot2, and in this way we obtain the index of plot2 here, because we pass in the label plot2. So the index corresponding to the word plot2 will be retrieved. Then we access, and the index is 1. Then in the list that contains all the different plots, we select the plot that is corresponding to the index 1, which is P1, and it's the second plot. We basically get its visibility, that is false, because at the beginning it was set to false. We change it, not so true, and then we set the visibility of this plot, which is P1, to true, and so we are going to enable the plot in the window. So okay, I'll just set the plot to visible. Okay, and yeah, just to conclude, again, canvas.draw, and then I think we're done. Oh no, we are missing the specification of the triggering event. So let's call again the variable that is responsible for this button. So it's plot button, and again, also in this case, we're interested to the onClick method, because we have to activate the function every time we click on the button, and the function that we want to run every time we click on the button is the function select plot. And yeah, I think that we're finally done with all the 3 widgets. Let's see how they looks like all together. Okay, it seems that it's working. Now it is displaying only the first plot. As we can see, the grid is working as well. Let's change the color, because as you remember, the second plot will be blue, so we can just make it red, black, blue again, or green, and then let's see. Oh yeah, there it is. The blue one is the second plot that gets displayed. Let's see if we want to hide it. Yes, perfect. Gets displayed again. Let's see with the plot one. Okay, it works perfectly. Also the plot one can be displayed or hide. We can also hide both the plots, so deactivate both the options or activate both the options. Well, in this case, as I told you before, only one of the options can be activated at the time. So I think we're done. That was it. All the 3 widgets, which I think are the most common widgets that you may want to implement in your script to change the properties of your plot. So I hope you liked the video, and yeah, see you in another one. Bye bye.